She woke up in chains, stolen from her ordinary life by a creature with eyes that shifted between silver and red, half angel, half demon, entirely dangerous. He told her she was a vessel, that something ancient was clawing its way into her soul, that in 14 days she would cease to exist. He told her he was her only protection. But when she looked at the glowing chains burning into her wrists and said she'd rather die than be his prisoner, she saw something flicker in those impossible eyes. Not cruelty, guilt, as if he'd done this before, as if he'd failed before. Now Julia can feel him inside her mind. Every thought, every fear, every century of pain he's carried alone. The bond between them shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be possible. But it's there, tying her to a monster who swears he's saving her while delivering her to the same fate that killed the girl he loved 800 years ago. The girl whose soul Julia carries. The girl who died screaming his name. They have 5 days. Until the ritual. 5 days until the angels burn away everything she is. 5 days to steal the one artifact that can free them both, hidden in the heart of the very sanctuary where she's meant to die. And the creature who chains her, who haunts her, who she's impossibly falling in love with, just made a choice that will damn them both. But here's what the angels hunting them don't know. Julia made a deal with the darkness inside her. And when you bargain with celestial fire, you either burn the world. The classroom smelled like old books and broken dreams. Julia Mendez stood at the chalkboard, explaining metaphors in Portuguese literature to 32 blank faces when the world tilted sideways. Not metaphorically. Literally. The floor rushed up to meet her, except it wasn't the floor anymore. It was her grandmother's kitchen 20 years ago. Except her grandmother had been dead for 8 months. Except the kitchen was on fire. Except the fire was inside Julia's veins, burning from the inside out. And she opened her mouth to scream, but what came out wasn't her voice. It was something ancient. Something that sounded like shattering glass and hymns sung backward. Then nothing. She woke up on cold concrete, wrists burning. Not burning like before. This was different. Focused. Real. Julia's eyes snapped open to complete darkness, and for 3 terrifying seconds she thought she'd gone blind during the episode. Then her vision adjusted. Stone walls, a single barred window, filtering weak moonlight, and chains. Actual chains, glowing with a light that definitely should not exist, wrapped around her wrists and bolted to the wall behind her. "You're awake." The voice came from the shadows in the corner, and Julia's heart tried to climb out through her throat. "Good. We have limited time, and I need you calm." "Calm?" The word came out as a rasp. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Where am I? Who the hell?" He stepped into the moonlight, and Julia's next words died. The man was tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark hair that touched his shoulders, and a face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so wrong. His eyes were what made her stomach drop. Silver. Pure, luminescent silver, like moonlight given form. No human had eyes like that. No human could have eyes like that. "My name is Serial," he said. And his voice was too calm, too measured, like he was reading instructions for assembling furniture instead of explaining why he'd kidnapped someone. "You are in danger. I am here to protect you." Julia looked at the chains, looked at him, looked at the chains again. "This is protection?" "Yes." No hesitation, no shame, just flat certainty. Something hot and furious clawed up Julia's chest. "Let me go, right now, or I swear to God." God is not listening. Serial moved closer, and Julia pressed back against the stone wall, chains rattling. "And if he is, he agrees with my methods. You have been having episodes, blackouts. You wake up hours later with no memory and burns on your hands. Yes?" The air left Julia's lungs. She'd told no one. Not the doctors who found nothing wrong. Not her co-worker Maria who'd found her passed out in the teacher's lounge last week. No one knew about the burns except Julia herself, hidden under long sleeves and lies. How do you... Because I have been watching you for 3 weeks. His eyes hadn't blinked once. Not once. Waiting for the manifestations to worsen. They are. Every episode brings you closer to complete. Possession. In 14 days at the equinox, if you are not properly contained, something will take permanent control of your body. Something that will use you to kill everyone you have ever known. Starting with your students. Julia's breath came in short, sharp gasps. You're insane. You're completely... Look at your hands. She did. Then wished she hadn't. The burns were back, fresh, palm prints, as if someone with skin made of fire had gripped her wrists. But that was impossible. She'd been fine when she'd woken up this morning. She'd been fine in class. She'd been... The memory hit like a fist, the floor tilting, the fire in her veins, and a voice, not hers, saying words in a language she'd never learned but somehow understood. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. What's happening to me? Her voice broke. She hated how small it sounded. Sariel knelt in front of her, still too far to touch, but close enough that Julia could see his eyes weren't just silver. They were moving, swirling, like liquid metal. You are a descendant of Enoch. Your bloodline produces, every 7th generation, a vessel. Someone whose body can host celestial or demonic essence without immediate death. Both sides want you. Both sides will rip you apart fighting over you. I was sent to keep you alive until the equinox, when you will be taken to the sanctuary for ascension. Ascension, Julia repeated numbly. A pretty word for possession. His jaw tightened. They will pour an angelic essence into you. It will burn away everything you are. Your memories, your personality, your soul. What remains will be a weapon wearing your face. The chains suddenly felt very, very heavy. And you're okay with this? For the first time, something flickered across his face. Almost too quick to catch. My opinions are irrelevant. I have my orders. Your orders. Julia laughed, and it came out sharp and brittle. Let me guess. You're not human either. No. He stood, turning away. I am Nephilim. Half angel, half demon. An abomination hated by both sides, but occasionally useful. I was told to protect you. I am protecting you. This isn't protection. Julia yanked against the chains. They burned hotter, and she hissed in pain. This is a prison. Yes. He didn't turn around. It is both. I'd rather die than be your prisoner. Now he turned. His eyes had changed, no longer silver. Red, deep, burning red, like coals at the bottom of a fire. When he spoke, his voice had an edge that made Julia's skin crawl. You will feel differently when the demons come. When Beleth's succubi tear through this town looking for you. When they slaughter everyone in that school to draw you out. You will beg for these chains then. You're a monster, Julia whispered. The red in his eyes flickered. For just a moment, they went purple. Silver and red mixed together, at war. Then back to red. Yes, he said quietly. I know. He walked to the door. An actual wooden door, reinforced with metal and covered in. Symbols that hurt to look at directly. Before he opened it, he spoke without turning around. There is food and water on the table to your left. The chains will extend 5 feet in any direction. Enough to reach the facilities. A bucket, but clean. I will return in 6 hours. Do not try to escape. The wards on this cabin will alert me instantly, and I will drag you back. Gently if you cooperate. Otherwise... He paused. I have done worse things than you can imagine, Julia Mendes. Do not make me add you to the list. The door closed. A lock clicked. 3 more locks clicked. Then silence. Julia sat in the darkness, chains glowing softly against her burned wrists, and felt the first tears come. Not from pain, from rage, from terror, from the horrible, creeping realization that the episodes she'd been hiding, the blackouts she'd been explaining away as stress or exhaustion or anything normal, they'd been real. They'd been something trying to crawl inside her. Something that wanted to wear her skin. She pulled her knees to her chest, as much as the chains allowed, and tried to remember how to breathe. Tried to remember the lesson plan she'd been teaching when the floor tilted. Metaphors. She'd been teaching about metaphors. How sometimes in literature, chains represented oppression. Prison represented loss of self. Monsters represented the darkness in human nature. Except here, now, the chains were literal. The prison was real. And the monster had red eyes and a voice that sounded almost sorry when he called himself an abomination. Julia closed her eyes and made herself a promise. She would escape. She would survive. And she would make sure Serial regretted every single second he'd kept her here, even if his eyes had looked genuinely broken when she'd called him a monster. Even if, for just a moment, she'd seen something in that purple flicker that looked almost like shame. 3 days. Julia had been chained in the cabin for 3 days, and she'd tried to escape 4 times. The first attempt had been pure desperation, yanking at the chains until her wrists bled, screaming until her voice gave out. Serial had appeared within minutes, eyes that horrible crimson, and simply waited in silence until she'd exhausted herself. The second time, she'd pretended to sleep and tried to pick the lock with a wire from her bra when he brought food. He'd caught her hand mid-motion, without even looking up, bent the wire into a useless knot, and left without a word. The third attempt involved throwing her water cup at his head as a distraction. He'd caught it, one-handed, still hadn't blinked. The fourth time, she'd tried reasoning, begging. She'd told him about her students, about Marco, who was finally reading at grade level after 2 years of struggle, about Isabella, whose parents were getting divorced and who stayed after class just to have someone to talk to, about how they needed her, how she couldn't just vanish. Serial had listened with those silver eyes. They'd been silver that day, calm and cold, and said, "They will mourn you. Then they will forget you. It is kinder than what will happen if I let you go." That was yesterday. Today, Julia had stopped trying. Not because she'd given up, but because she'd started paying attention, watching, learning. Serial brought food twice a day, always at dawn and dusk. He never stayed longer than 10 minutes, never got closer than 6 feet unless she tried something. And his eyes, God, his eyes changed. Constantly. Silver when he was calm, red when he was irritated, and sometimes, when she said something that seemed to hit a nerve, they'd flash that in-between purple, like 2 people arguing behind the same face. She was thinking about this when the episode hit. No warning. 1 second she was sitting against the wall, cataloging every detail of the cabin for potential weaknesses. The next, her body wasn't hers anymore. The burns erupted across her palms like someone had pressed hot irons there, and Julia's back arched so violently she heard something crack. Not her spine. The chains. The glowing chains that were supposed to be unbreakable were developing hairline fractures, spiderwebbing out from where they connected to her wrists. Then the voice came. Not in her head, through her mouth, using her vocal cords, speaking in that same backwards hymn language from the classroom. And this time Julia understood every word because she wasn't Julia anymore. She was something else. Something that had been waiting a very, very long time to speak. "He lies to you, little vessel." Her own voice, but wrong, deeper, layered with harmonics that made the air vibrate. The protector, the half-breed. He does not guard you. He delivers you, just as he delivered the one before. Julia tried to scream, tried to fight. Her body wouldn't obey. She was a passenger in her own skin, watching through her eyes as her hands moved without permission, touching the chains. Where her fingers made contact, the metal blackened, corroded, The burns on her palms weren't burns at all, she realized with dawning horror. They were marks, brands, entry points for whatever this thing was. "Ask him," the voice continued, and Julia's lips curved into a smile she didn't authorize. "Ask him about Miriam, about the girl 800 years ago who he swore to protect, who he delivered to the angels like a lamb to slaughter, who screamed his name as they poured holy fire into her veins. He listened to every scream, little vessel, and he did nothing." The cabin door exploded inward. Serial moved like violence given form, crossing the space between door and Julia in less than a heartbeat. His eyes were purple, fully purple, not flickering, not fighting, both colors present simultaneously, silver and red so mixed they created something entirely new. He grabbed Julia's face with both hands, and his skin was hot. Not warm, hot, burning hot like fever, like the essence inside her. And when he spoke, his voice was two voices overlapping. "Get out of her." Julia's body laughed. The thing inside her laughed, using her lungs, her throat, her tongue. "Make me abomination, or will you kill another innocent to save your conscience?" Something shifted in Serial's expression. The purple in his eyes began to swirl faster, a maelstrom of conflicting light. Then he pressed his forehead against Julia's, and the world went white. Pain. Everywhere. Not physical pain. This was worse. This was her mind being invaded. Her thoughts laid bare. Every memory and fear and secret desire exposed like nerve endings to air. She felt Sariel's presence, enormous and ancient and fractured, pushing against the thing that had burrowed into her consciousness. Felt him wrap around it, contain it, suffocate it with sheer force of will. The essence fought back, clawing through Julia's synapses, and she felt herself being torn in two directions. Felt her sanity starting to fray at the edges. Then she felt something else. Serial's memories bleeding into hers. A girl with dark hair and terrified eyes, chained to a stone altar. Angels surrounding her, chanting in that same backwards language. The girl screaming Serial's name. And Serial, younger, watching from the shadows, hands clenched into fists, purple eyes bright with unshed tears, as holy fire poured into the girl's open mouth. Watching as her screams turned to something not human. Watching as the angels smiled and called it ascension. Watching as the thing wearing the girl's face turned to him and said, "Why didn't you save me?" Julia gasped. The white light shattered. She was back in her body, back in the cabin, back in the chains. Serial was still holding her face, but gently now. His hands were shaking. His eyes were still purple, but dimmer, exhausted. When he spoke, his voice was raw. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't. It was too strong. I had to." He stopped, swallowed hard, pulled back like her skin had burned him. "Are you hurt?" Julia stared at him, at this creature who'd kidnapped her, chained her, imprisoned her. This creature whose memories she'd just lived through, whose guilt she'd felt like a physical weight, pressing down on him for 8 centuries. This creature whose hands were still shaking. "You felt it," she whispered. "When they burned her, you felt everything she felt." Serial's jaw tightened. He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. Nephilim bonds work both ways. When you are assigned to protect someone, you feel their pain, their fear, their death. His eyes flickered red for a moment. It is meant to ensure we do our jobs properly, that we deliver our charges safely to their fates. Then silver. But all it does is make us cowards. We feel too much, so we feel nothing instead. "That thing," Julia said, voice still shaking. "It told me you'd deliver me just like her. Is that true?" Serial was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his eyes had gone silver. Completely silver. Cold and distant. I have my orders. In 11 days, I will take you to the sanctuary. What happens there is not my decision. But you know what will happen. You've seen it before. Yes. And you'll do it anyway. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Yes. Julia felt something crack in her chest. Not her ribs. Something deeper. Something that might have been the last bit of hope she'd been clinging to. Then you're right, she said quietly. You are a monster. The silver in his eyes flickered. Purple bled through, just for a second. Then red. Bright, burning red. When he spoke, his voice was sharp enough to cut. Yes, I am. And you will thank me for it when Beleth's demons come. When they wear the faces of your students to make you surrender. When they promise mercy if you just come quietly. You will beg me to be the monster then, Julia Mendez. You will beg me to be worse. He turned and walked to the door. Paused with his hand on the frame. Didn't look back. The essence inside you is awake now. It will try to speak again. Do not listen. Do not answer. And do not ask it questions, no matter how badly you want answers. Every word it speaks gives it more control. Do you understand? Julia nodded, then realized he wasn't looking at her. Yes. Good. The door opened. I will return in 4 hours. Try to rest. The episodes will only get stronger from here. He left. The locks clicked. Julia sat in the silence, chains glowing softly, and touched her wrists where his hands had been. His skin had been so hot, like touching a furnace, but he'd been gentle. Even while invading her mind, even while fighting the essence, he'd been careful, like he was terrified of breaking her. And those memories. God, those memories. The girl screaming his name, the guilt in his eyes, the way his voice had cracked when he'd said I'm sorry, like he'd been saying it for 800 years and still couldn't make himself believe it. Julia closed her eyes and felt tears on her cheeks. She didn't know if she was crying for herself, or for the girl who'd died screaming, or for the monster who'd been forced to listen. Maybe all three. Day 6. Julia had stopped counting hours and started counting breaths. In, out, in, out. Anything to keep the voice quiet. Because it hadn't stopped. Not since the episode 3 days ago. The essence inside her whispered constantly now. A low murmur just beneath her conscious thought, like static on a radio. She couldn't turn off. It told her things. Terrible things. Beautiful things. It promised power, freedom, revenge against the monster who'd chained her. All she had to do was say yes. Just one word. One tiny word. And the chains would shatter, and she could walk out of here and never look back. She hadn't said it. Yet. But God, she wanted to. Sariel had been different since the episode. He still brought food twice daily. Still never got too close. Still watched her with those color-changing eyes. But something had shifted. He lingered now. Not long. Maybe 30 seconds. A minute at most. But he'd stand by the door after setting down the tray, like he was waiting for something. Or dreading it. His eyes stayed purple more often than not. That in-between shade that meant both sides of him were present. Arguing, never reaching consensus. Julia had started testing him. Small things. Questions designed to make him uncomfortable. Did you know her name before they assigned you? Miriam? His jaw had tightened, but he'd answered. No, we are not told names, only targets. Another day. Do you dream about her? His eyes had flashed red, then silver, then purple again. Nephilim do not dream. We remember. It is worse. And yesterday the question that had made him actually pause halfway to the door. If you could go back, would you save her? He hadn't answered. He just left. But Julia had seen his hands shaking. She was thinking about that conversation when the temperature in the cabin dropped 20 degrees in 3 seconds flat. The chains on her wrists went from warm to ice cold so fast that frost formed on the metal. Julia's breath came out in visible clouds, and the air, Jesus, the air felt wrong. Thick, heavy, like the atmosphere before a lightning strike, charged with something that made her teeth ache. Then the walls started bleeding. Not blood, something darker, viscous and black, oozing from the stones like the cabin itself was sweating. The substance dripped down in slow rivulets, and where it touched the floor, the wood hissed and smoked. The symbols Sariel had carved into every surface began to glow red hot, fighting against whatever was trying to force its way inside. The voice in Julia's head, the essence, went suddenly, terrifyingly silent. The door didn't open. It melted. The wood and metal simply liquefied, running like wax, and through the opening stepped something wearing a woman's face. Tall, blonde, beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly. She wore a red dress that moved wrong, like it was made of silk and shadows woven together. Her eyes were black, completely black. No whites, no iris, just endless dark. "There you are," the woman said, and her voice was honey poured over broken glass. "The little vessel, the seventh daughter of the seventh daughter. Do you know how long we have been searching for you, sweet thing?" Julia pressed back against the wall. The chains wouldn't extend far enough for her to reach the melted doorway. Not that she could have run anyway. Her legs had stopped working. "Stay away from me," the woman laughed. It sounded like wind chimes made of bone. "Oh, darling, I am not here to hurt you. I am here to save you. From him. From the half-breed who thinks chains are protection. From the angels who want to burn away everything you are." She took a step closer. The floorboards screamed under her feet. "I am Lilith's daughter, Beleth's favorite, and I have come to offer you a choice. I don't want—" "Yes, you do." Another step. The black in her eyes rippled. "You want freedom. You want revenge. You want to make him suffer the way he has made you suffer. I can give you all of that. All you need to do is invite me in. One word. Just one. Say yes, and I will break these chains. Say yes, and I will tear him apart while you watch. Say yes, and you will never be powerless again." The essence inside Julia stirred. Eager, hungry. It wanted this. Wanted to merge with whatever this creature was, to become something strong enough to break free. Julia felt her mouth opening, felt the word forming on her tongue. Yes. Such a small word. Such an easy word. No. The voice came from behind the succubus. Sariel stood in the ruined doorway and he looked wrong. His eyes weren't purple anymore. They were fractured. Silver in the left, red in the right, both colors bleeding into each other at the edges like oil and water forced to mix. His hands were clawed, fingers elongated into something between human and talons. And his shadow, God, his shadow was moving independently, reaching across the floor like living darkness. "You are not welcome here, daughter of Beleth." His voice was layered again, two people speaking in imperfect unison. "Leave. Now. Or I will make you leave." The succubus smiled. "Will you? Last I checked, little Nephilim, you follow orders, and your orders are to deliver her to the sanctuary in, what is it now, 8 days? You have no investment in her? Survival beyond that. So why stop me from taking what is already lost?" Something in Sariel's expression cracked. "She is not lost. Isn't she?" The succubus gestured at Julia. "Look at her. The essence is awake, growing stronger every day. In 8 days, there will not be enough of her left to save. The angels will pour their fire into an empty shell. You know this. You have seen it before. So why pretend this time will be different? Because it will be." The silver in Sariel's left eye flared brighter. "I will make it different." "How? You cannot break your orders. You cannot defy the conclave. You are a weapon, Sariel. A tool. You do not have the luxury of caring." "I know." His voice dropped to something raw, something that sounded like it was being torn out of him against his will. "But I am trying anyway." The succubus stared at him, then threw back her head and laughed. "Oh, this is delicious. You care about her. Actually care. After 800 years of perfect obedience, you finally grew a conscience. How tragically human of you." "Last warning," Sariel said quietly. "Leave." "Or what? You will fight me? Kill me? Break every law of non-interference between our realms?" The succubus's smile widened. "Do it. Give Beleth the excuse he needs to declare open war. Give the angels reason to execute you for treason. Throw away your pathetic existence for a girl who will be dead in 8 days regardless." Sariel moved. Julia didn't see him cross the space. One moment he was in the doorway. The next his hand was around the succubus's throat, lifting her off the ground. His shadow wrapped around her legs, her arms, her torso, squeezing like a python. The red eye blazed. "I have killed for less. Do not test me." The succubus choked, smiled through it. "There he is, the demon's son. I wondered when he would emerge." Sariel's grip tightened. The succubus's form began to flicker, losing cohesion. Then, with a sound like tearing fabric, she dissolved into black smoke and vanished. Her voice lingered, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. "He will fail you, vessel, just as he failed Miriam. And when he delivers you to your death, remember, I offered you a choice. He only offers you chains." Then silence. Sariel stood in the center of the cabin, breathing hard, hands still clawed. Slowly, the red faded from his right eye. The silver dimmed in his left. Purple bled back in, cautious, exhausted. His shadow retracted, became normal again. When he turned to look at Julia, his face was stricken. "Are you hurt?" His voice was his own again, single, humanish. "Did she touch you? Did she—" "You said it would be different." Julia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "What did you mean?" Sariel went very still. "Nothing. I meant nothing." "You're lying." She pulled against the chains, leaning forward as far as they'd allow. "Your eyes went silver when you said it. That's your angel side, the one that cares about free will and choice and doing the right thing." "So what did you mean?" "It does not matter what I meant." He turned away, started repairing the doorframe with movements too fast to follow. "I have my orders. In 8 days. Stop." Julia's voice cracked. "Stop saying that like it absolves you. Like you are just following orders, and that makes it okay. You showed me Miriam. You let me feel what you felt. The guilt. The self-hatred. The 800 years of wishing you had chosen differently. So choose differently now. Choose. Me." Sariel's hand stilled on the wood. "I cannot. Cannot or will not. Both." He pressed his forehead against the doorframe. "You do not understand the consequences. If I defy the conclave, they will hunt us both. If I break my orders, I forfeit every protection I have negotiated to keep you alive this long. The succubus was a test, a probe. Beleth's actual forces are waiting for me to fail, to give them excuse to take you by force. The moment I step outside my mandate, you become fair game. For both sides. Then we run." He laughed. It sounded broken. "To where? There is nowhere in this world or the next that they cannot find us. I am Nephilim. You are a vessel. We are the two most valuable, most hunted things in existence right now. Running is not survival. It is slower death." Julia felt tears on her face. "Then what do we do?" Sariel was quiet for a long moment. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "I do not know." He finished repairing the door. Reinforced the wards. Drew new symbols in his own blood to replace the ones the succubus had damaged. When he finally turned back to Julia, his eyes were silver, calm, cold. The walls back up. "I will increase patrols. They will try again." He moved toward the door. Do not listen to anything that comes through these walls. Do not answer if something calls your name. And do not—" his voice caught. "Do not invite anything in. Not even if it promises freedom. Especially not then. Serial." He stopped. "Thank you for stopping her." His hand tightened on the doorframe. "Do not thank me. I am still taking you to the sanctuary in 8 days. I am still delivering you to your death. Stopping the succubus only delays the inevitable." He looked back over his shoulder, and his eyes were purple again. Fractured. "I am not your savior, Julia. I am your warden. Remember that." The door closed. The locks clicked. Julia sat in the restored silence and realized something that made her chest ache. Serial had called her by her name. Not vessel. Not target. Julia. And his voice had broken when he'd said it. Day 9. The essence inside Julia was no longer whispering. It was screaming. Not in words. Worse than words. It was pure sensation, pure need, clawing at the inside of her skull like a trapped animal trying to dig its way out through bone. Her hands shook constantly now. The burns on her palms had spread up her forearms, branching patterns that looked almost like wings or roots. She couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't think straight through the noise in her head. Serial had stopped leaving. After the succubus attack, he'd moved a chair into the corner of the cabin and simply stayed, watching, waiting. His eyes cycled through colors faster now. Silver to red to purple and back again. Sometimes all three at once, fractured and fighting. He barely spoke, barely moved, just sat there like a statue. Except statues didn't look at you like they were memorizing your face in case they never saw it again. Julia hated it. Hated how aware she was of him. Hated how she'd started tracking the rhythm of his breathing when she couldn't sleep. Hated how, when the essence got particularly loud, she found herself looking at him instead of the door. Like his presence was the only anchor keeping her tethered to reality. It was 3 a.m. when the next episode hit, and this one was different. Worse. The burns on her arms ignited with pain so intense that Julia's vision whited out. She felt her back arch, felt the chains crack further. They were barely holding now, more fracture than metal. Felt her mouth open and that horrible layered voice pour out. Except this time, it wasn't speaking to Serial. It was speaking to her. "Let me save you." The essence's voice filled her entire consciousness, drowning out everything else. "He will not. He cannot. But I can. Merge with me willingly, and I will burn away these chains. I will burn away him. I will burn away everything that has ever hurt you. And you will never be powerless again." Julia tried to fight, tried to push it back like she'd done before, but she was so tired. 9 days of terror and isolation, and watching Serial sit in that corner looking at her like she was already dead. 9 days of feeling something inside her getting stronger while she got weaker. 9 days of knowing that in 5 more days, she'd be dragged to the sanctuary and turned into a weapon whether she fought or not. What was the point of resisting? "That is it," the essence crooned. "Surrender. Let go. It will hurt less if you do not fight." Julia felt herself slipping, felt the boundaries between her consciousness and the essence starting to blur, felt her body moving without her permission, standing, the chains screaming in protest. Her hands lifted, palms out, and where she touched the metal, it didn't just corrode, it dissolved, turned to ash and smoke. She was free, actually free. And God, it felt good. It felt powerful. It felt... Julia. Serial's voice cut through the haze. He was standing now, 3 feet away, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. His eyes were purple. Fully, completely purple. "I know you can hear me. I know you are still in there. Fight it." Her mouth moved. The essence's voice came out. "She does not want to fight anymore, half-breed. She wants release, She wants power. She wants everything you have denied her. I know. Sariel took a step closer. I know what I have done to her. I know what I am. But, Julia, his voice cracked on her name, if you let it take you, there will be nothing left. No memories, no personality, no you. Just an empty shell wearing your face. Is that really what you want? Julia felt the essence hesitate, felt her own consciousness surge forward, just a little. I want, her own voice, weak and ragged. I want it to stop hurting. I know. Another step. He was close enough to touch now. I know it hurts, but this will not stop the pain. It will only make you forget. You are in pain. There is a difference. The essence snarled through her. What do you offer instead? 5 more days of chains? 5 more days of imprisonment? 5 more days of counting down to her death? You are stalling, Nephilim. You have no solution, no escape. You are as trapped as she is. Yes, Sariel said quietly. I am. He reached out slowly and touched Julia's face with both hands. The moment his skin made contact, everything shattered. The cabin disappeared. The chains disappeared. Reality itself seemed to fracture and reform into something else entirely. Julia was in Sariel's mind. No, deeper than that. She was in his soul, and he was in hers. The bond formed like a thunderclap, involuntary, instantaneous, absolute. Suddenly Julia could feel everything Sariel felt. 800 years of guilt crashed into her like a tidal wave. The weight of Miriam's death, the sound of her screams, replaying in his memory every single day for centuries. The self-loathing, the desperate, clawing need to do something right just once in his miserable existence. The war inside him, angel side screaming that he had to follow orders, had to deliver Julia to the sanctuary because rules mattered, because structure mattered, because without law there was only chaos. Demon side snarling that orders were chains, that he should burn the conclave to ash, that Julia's life mattered more than some cosmic game of chess. And underneath it all, terrifying in its simplicity, he cared. Actually, genuinely cared. About her. About Julia. Not the vessel. Not the target. Her. The woman who taught metaphors to bored teenagers. The woman who cried when she thought he wasn't watching. The woman who'd looked at him and called him a monster. And somehow that had hurt worse than 8 centuries of being called an abomination. But Julia felt something else too. She felt herself reflected in his perception. Felt how he saw her. Strong. Braver than she knew. Fighting every single day, even when it would be easier to surrender. And terrified. So utterly terrified. Not just of the essence or the sanctuary or death. Terrified of being forgotten. Of disappearing. Of mattering to no one. You matter to me. Sariel's voice, but inside her head now. Inside the bond. I know I have no right. I know what I am doing to you is unforgivable. But you matter. You have mattered since the first time I watched you stay late after class to help that boy with his reading. Since I saw you buy coffee for the homeless man outside your building every morning. Since I realized you are genuinely, impossibly good, and I am about to destroy that. I am so sorry, Julia. I am so goddamn sorry. The essence howled. It couldn't touch the bond, couldn't corrupt it. The connection between Julia and Sariel was made of something purer than it could manipulate. It retreated, hissing, back into the dark corners of Julia's consciousness. Julia gasped. She was back in her body. Back in the cabin. Sariel was still holding her face, but he was shaking now, shaking hard. His eyes were leaking tears, one silver, one red, both tracks running down his face. He looked shattered. I did not mean to, he said hoarsely. The bond, it should not have formed. Not like this. Not without. He stopped, swallowed. You can feel me now. Everything I feel, every thought, every emotion. And I can feel you. For the rest of our lives, we will be connected. I have tied you to a monster and I cannot undo it. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Julia reached up with shaking hands and touched his wrists. Through the bond, she felt his shock at the gentleness of the gesture. You are not a monster. I have kidnapped you, chained you, imprisoned you for 9 days. I know. She tightened her grip. I can feel why. I can feel the orders pressing on you like physical weight. I can feel how much it costs you every single day to keep me here. I can feel... Her voice broke. You are terrified. You are absolutely terrified that you are going to fail me the way you failed Miriam. Sariel closed his eyes. I am going to fail you. In 5 days, I will take you to the sanctuary, and they will destroy you, and I will have to watch. Again, I will have to feel you die through the bond. I will carry your death the way I carry hers. Then do not take me. Julia pulled his hands down, held them between hers. The burns on her palms should have hurt against his skin, but they didn't. Through the bond, she felt... Why? His essence and hers recognized each other now, accepted each other. You said you would make it different this time, so make it different. Choose me. Choose us. The consequences. I know the consequences. She did. She could feel them through the bond. The conclave would hunt them. Both sides would send everything they had. There would be no safety. No rest. Just running. Forever. I would rather run with you than die in chains. Wouldn't you? Sariel stared at her. Through the bond. Julia felt the exact moment something inside him broke. Or maybe mended. She wasn't sure which. His eyes cycled through colors one more time. Silver, red, purple. Then settled on purple and stayed there. Balanced. Whole. For the first time since she'd met him, both sides of him agreed on something. Yes, he whispered. God help me. Yes. He pulled her closer, wrapped his arms around her, and Julia felt him shaking, felt through the bond how much this cost him, how deeply it went against every instinct, every order, every rule he'd followed for millennia. He was choosing her over duty, over law, over everything he'd ever been taught mattered. He was choosing her. Julia buried her face in his shoulder and let herself cry. Not from fear this time, from relief, from exhaustion. From the overwhelming, terrifying realization that she wasn't alone anymore. That someone, something, had looked at her and decided she was worth burning the world for. Through the bond, she felt Sariel's response. Fierce, protective, absolute. We leave at dawn, he said quietly. We run, and I will protect you from everything that comes, or I will die trying. Julia pulled back enough to meet his eyes, purple, steady, determined. Do not die. His lips quirked, almost a smile. I will try not to. He stood, pulling her with him, and Julia realized the chains were gone, dissolved when the bond formed. She was free. Actually, finally free. Sariel kept one hand in hers as he moved around the cabin, gathering supplies with efficient, economical movements. And through the bond, Julia felt his plan forming, felt the routes he was calculating, the safe houses, the allies who might help, the enemies to avoid. She also felt his fear, because this was not just defiance. This was treason, and the punishment for treason was death, for both of them. But when he looked at her again, she felt something else too, something that made her chest ache. Hope. For the first time in 800 years, Sariel had hope. They ran, for 2 days straight, barely stopping, moving through back roads and forgotten paths that Sariel seemed to know by instinct. Julia learned quickly that Nephilim didn't tire the way humans did. Sariel could run for hours without breaking stride, could carry her when her legs gave out, could navigate in complete darkness, like he'd been born to it. Which, she supposed through the bond, he had been. Born to darkness and light in equal measure, belonging to neither. rejected by both. The bond made everything stranger. Julia could feel Serial's awareness of their surroundings like a constant hum beneath her own thoughts. Could feel him tracking threats, calculating distances, monitoring her exhaustion levels with the precision of someone who'd spent millennia keeping people alive. Could feel his guilt every time he had to push her harder than her body wanted to go. Could feel his relief every time they made it another mile without being found. It was invasive and intimate and terrifying, and she wouldn't trade it for anything, because she could also feel that he meant it. Every promise, every protection, every fierce, desperate determination to keep her alive. He wasn't her kidnapper anymore. He was her partner. And that shift had happened so fast, it should have given her whiplash. Except it didn't feel fast through the bond. It felt like something that had been building since the moment he'd first touched her face, first let her see inside. His fractured soul. They were hiding in an abandoned church on the outskirts of some nameless town when Julia finally asked the question that had been eating at her. They'd barricaded themselves in the basement, Serial drawing wards on every surface while Julia sat against the wall trying to remember what sleep felt like. The essence inside her had gone quiet since the bond formed. Not gone. She could still feel it lurking, but subdued, like Serial's presence was keeping it muzzled. "Why did you really take this assignment?" Her voice echoed in the stone chamber. "You could have refused. You could have told the Conclave to find someone else. Someone who wouldn't care. Someone who wouldn't..." She gestured vaguely at the space between them. At the bond neither of them could see, but both felt constantly. Serial's hand stilled on the wall. His eyes were silver, but through the bond, Julia felt the red stirring underneath. Both sides considering how to answer. "I took it because I was ordered." "Two," he said finally. "Nephilim do not refuse assignments. We cannot." That is not the whole truth. Julia could feel the lie the moment it left his mouth. Not because she was psychic, because the bond didn't allow dishonesty. Every half-truth, every evasion, every careful omission registered like static against her consciousness. "Try again." Serial turned to face her. His expression was carefully neutral, but through the bond, Julia felt the storm underneath. Shame, fear, something else she couldn't quite name. "I took it," he said slowly, "because the Conclave offered me a choice. Take this assignment, or they would give it to Azazel." Julia frowned. "Who is Azazel?" "My brother." The words came out flat. Half-brother, technically. Same angelic father, different demonic mothers. He is older, stronger, and he has no compunctions about delivering vessels to their deaths. He sees humans as insects. Useful occasionally, but ultimately disposable. I could not. He stopped. Started. Again. I knew what this assignment was. I knew what they would ask me to do. But if Azazel took it, you would have suffered. He would not have kept you in a cabin. He would have kept you in a cage. He would not have fed you regular meals, or given you privacy, or treated you with any dignity whatsoever. You would have arrived at the sanctuary broken. And I could not. His voice cracked. He pressed his palms against the wall, head bowed. I thought I could do it. I thought I could protect you for the allotted time, deliver you, and walk away. I have done it before. I could do it again. Except I am not Miriam. Julia stood, crossed the space between them. The bond thrummed with his awareness of her approach. You said the bond should not have formed. What did you mean? Serial's shoulders tensed. Nephilim bonds are assigned, intentional, created through ritual when we are given protection contracts. They allow us to feel our charges' distress, to track them, to know when they now are in danger. But they are one-sided. The charge does not feel us, does not know we are there. It is meant to be... He laughed bitterly. It is meant to be a leash, a way to ensure we do our jobs without becoming attached. But ours is not one-sided. No. He turned to look at her, and his eyes were purple now, conflicted, honest. When I touched you during the episode, when I tried to stabilize you, something went wrong, or right. I do not know anymore. The bond should have flowed one direction. Instead, he gestured helplessly. It equalized. You can feel me the way I feel you. We are connected as equals, and that has never happened before. Not in all my existence. Not in any Nephilim's existence that I know of. Julia processed that. Through the bond, she felt his confusion, his wonder, his terror at the implications. Why? Why would it be different with me? I do not know. But through the bond, Julia felt that he was lying again. Or not lying, withholding. There was a theory forming in his mind, something he did not want to voice because voicing it would make it real. She reached out and touched his arm, and the bond flared brighter. She could almost see the thought if she pushed just a little harder. Sariel caught her hand. Do not. His voice was rough. Please. There are some things I am not ready to say out loud. Julia wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But through the bond, she felt his raw vulnerability, and she found herself nodding instead. Okay, but eventually, he agreed quietly. When we are safe, when we have time, when I can say it without... He stopped, released her hand. You should rest. We have at least 4 hours before we need to move again. What about you? I do not need sleep the way you do. I will keep watch. Julia wanted to argue. Wanted to point out that she could feel his exhaustion through the bond, feel how he was burning through energy he did not have to keep them both moving. But she was also exhausted, bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. So she settled back against the wall, wrapped her arms around herself, and closed her eyes. She was almost asleep when she felt him sit down beside her. Not touching, but close. Close enough that his warmth bled into the cold basement air. Close enough that the bond hummed with contentment at the proximity. Sariel? Her voice was drowsy. Thank you. For choosing me. Through the bond, she felt his response. A wave of emotion so intense it took her breath away. Gratitude, disbelief, fierce, terrifying affection. Thank you, he whispered back, for giving me something worth choosing. Julia drifted off to the sound of his breathing, to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat that she could feel through the bond like a second pulse. She dreamed of silver and red light dancing together, finally balanced, finally whole. She woke to the smell of sulfur and the sound of something massive hitting the church doors above them. Sariel was on his feet instantly, eyes blazing red, shadows coiling around his hands like living weapons. Through the bond, Julia felt his recognition, felt his dread. They found us, he said flatly. Who? But even as Julia asked, she knew, could feel it through Sariel's memory, could see the face of the creature attacking. Tall, brutal, eyes like hot coals. Azazel. My brother. Sariel moved to stand between Julia and the stairs leading up. Stay behind me. Do not engage him. Do not speak to him. And whatever he says, whatever he offers, do not believe him. The church doors shattered. Footsteps echoed on stone, slow and measured. Then a voice, deep and amused, drifted down to the basement. Little brother, I have been looking everywhere for you. The conclave is very disappointed. They sent me to retrieve their property. A pause. And to determine whether you are worth saving or whether I should kill you for your treason. Sariel's hands clenched into fists. Through the bond, Julia felt both sides of him in complete agreement for once. If Azazel tried to take her, Sariel would fight. Would kill his own brother if necessary. Would die trying. Julia stood and moved to his side, ignored his sharp look of warning, threaded her fingers through his. Through the bond, she sent one clear message. Together. Sariel's expression softened for just a moment. then hardened into something that looked like acceptance, like peace. His eyes stayed red, but his hand tightened around hers. Together, he agreed quietly. The footsteps reached the top of the basement stairs. Azazel's silhouette filled the doorway, backlit by moonlight. When he spoke again, his voice was sharp with cruel amusement. How sweet. The monster found something to care about. Tell me, little brother, when the conclave drags her to the sanctuary and burns out her soul, will you watch this time? Or will you finally have the courage to look away? Sariel's shadows exploded outward, consuming the basement in darkness. His voice, when he answered, was two voices speaking as one. Angel and demon, silver and red, balanced and unified and absolutely lethal. You will not touch her. You will not take her. And if you try, I will show you exactly how much of our father's wrath I inherited. The darkness swallowed everything. And in the silence before the violence began, Julia felt Sariel's final thought through the bond, clear as a bell. I love you. I am sorry I did not say it sooner. I am sorry I may not survive to say it again. Julia's response was instinctive, immediate, absolute. I love you too. Now let's make sure we both survive to say it as many times as we want. The darkness Sariel created wasn't absence of light. It was presence of shadow, thick, tangible, alive. Julia couldn't see anything, but through the bond she felt everything. Felt Sariel's awareness expanding to fill the entire basement like sonar, tracking Azazel's position, his movements, the micro shifts in air pressure that telegraphed in. Attacks before they landed. Felt the demon side of him fully unleashed for the first time. Feral and precise, and utterly without mercy. Azazel moved first. Julia heard rather than saw the impact. Bodies colliding with enough force to crack stone. The wet sound of flesh tearing, a grunt that might have been pain or might have been laughter. Through the bond, she felt Sariel's ribs break. Felt him ignore the injury completely, retaliate with claws that found throat, that drew blood hot enough to steam in the cold basement air. There you are. Azazel's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, delighted. I was starting to think Father's blood had been completely diluted in you. Good to know the predator is still in there somewhere. Sariel didn't answer, didn't waste breath on words. Through the bond, Julia felt his strategy. Keep Azazel focused on him, away from her, no matter the cost. She felt him take another hit, this one to the shoulder, bone shattering. Felt him heal it almost as fast as it broke, demon regeneration kicking in. But the effort was draining him, burning through energy he didn't have. The darkness flickered. For just a second, Julia saw them. Two figures locked together in combat that looked more like dance than fight, moving too fast for human eyes to track. Sariel's eyes blazed pure red, his form partially shifted. Not fully demon, but not human either. Something in between. Azazel was bigger, broader, his own eyes like hot coals set in a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't twisted with savage glee. Then darkness again. Another impact. This time Julia felt Sariel's spine compress, vertebrae grinding. Felt his scream, the one he wouldn't let out loud, echoing through the bond instead. Felt his thought crystal clear. He is stronger. I cannot win. But I can give her time. No. Julia's response through the bond was immediate, fierce. We fight together or not at all. You said it yourself. Together. She felt his shock, his denial. Felt him trying to push her back through the bond, trying to wrap her in protective layers that would keep her safely ignorant of the battle. But Julia pushed back. The bond worked both ways. If she could feel him, he could feel her. And what she felt right now was absolute, unshakable certainty. She wasn't going to hide while he died for her. Not again. Not like Miriam. The essence inside her stirred. The thing that had been quiet since the bond formed suddenly surged forward, sensing opportunity, sensing her desperation. It whispered, seductive and eager, "Use me. Let me help. Let me save him the way he saved you." Every instinct Julia had screamed no. Screamed that this was exactly what the essence wanted. An invitation, a foothold, a way to take control. But through the bond, she felt Sariel faltering. Felt Azazel's claws sink into his side. Felt organs tear. Felt Sariel's regeneration slowing because he'd used too much, pushed too hard, fought too long. He was going to lose. And if he lost, Azazel would take her, would deliver her to the sanctuary, would ensure that Sariel's sacrifice meant nothing. Julia made a choice, not surrender, negotiation. She reached for the essence, not with submission, but with demand. You want out? Fine, but on my terms. You help me save him, and then you go back in your cage. We work together. Once. That is the deal. The essence hesitated. It wasn't used to being commanded. Wasn't used to vessels who still had enough will to bargain. But Julia felt its curiosity, felt it testing the bonds Sariel had wrapped around it, finding them weakened by his distraction, his injuries. Felt it considering. Then, impossibly, agreed. But know this, vessel. The more you use me, the more I become you. The line will blur. Be certain this is worth the cost. It was. Julia didn't hesitate. She reached for the essence and it reached back. Power flooded through her like liquid fire, like lightning in her veins. The burns on her arms ignited, not with pain, but with light. Pure, searing white light that cut through Sariel's darkness like a blade through silk. Azazel stopped mid-strike, his claws inches from Sariel's throat, turned to stare at Julia, at the light pouring from her skin, from her eyes, from her open mouth. "Impossible," he breathed. "The vessel is not prepared. The ascension is not complete. You should not be able to—" Julia didn't let him finish. The essence moved through her with purpose, with precision she didn't know she got. Possessed. Her hand lifted, palm out, and light exploded from it in a focused beam that caught Azazel square in the chest. He flew backward, smashed into the far wall, and the stone cracked around him like a spider web. The smell of burning flesh filled the basement. Sariel was on his feet instantly, eyes wide with shock and something that might have been fear. "Julia, no. Stop. You do not understand what you are." "I understand perfectly." Her voice came out layered, harmonics beneath the la. Surface, but still hers, still in control. "I am choosing. I am choosing you. I am choosing us. And I am choosing to fight." Azazel pulled himself from the wall, smoking, bleeding from wounds that weren't healing as fast as they should. He looked at Julia with something new in his coal bright eyes. Respect. And wariness. "You made a deal with it, with the essence. That is—" He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "That is either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Leave." Julia took a step. Forward. And the light around her intensified. Through the bond, she felt Sariel's terror. Not of her. For her. Because he could feel what the essence was costing her. Could feel how it was burning through her humanity like fuel. Could feel the line between Julia and the thing inside her starting to blur, just like it had promised. "Leave now, or I will make you leave. And unlike your brother, I do not have 800 years of restraint holding me back." Azazel studied her for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Sariel. "The Conclave will not accept this. They will send more, stronger. They will send the Seraphim, little brother. And when they do, not even your vessel-turned weapon will be enough to stop them. Let them come." Sariel moved to stand beside Julia, his own shadows rising to twine with her light. Through the bond, she felt his acceptance, his pride, his absolute conviction that whatever happened next, they would face it together. "I am done being their weapon. Done." delivering innocents to slaughter. If they want her, they will have to go through me, through us. Azazel's expression shifted. Something almost like regret flickered across his brutal features. You know I will be the one they send to kill you when the time comes. They will make me do it. Brother against brother, just like the old stories. I know. Sariel's voice was steady. When that day comes, we will do what we must. Azazel nodded slowly. Then to Julia's shock, he inclined his head. Shallow bow. You have courage, Vessel. More than most immortals I have known. My brother has chosen well, even if his choice will destroy him. He straightened, shadows gathering around him like wings. I will tell the conclave you fought, that I barely escaped with my life. That will buy you time. Days, maybe. But Julia Mendez, his eyes locked on hers. The essence inside you is awake now, fully awake. And every time you use it, you feed it. You give it more control. Eventually there will not be enough of you left to bargain with. When that happens, the thing wearing your face will be worse than anything the conclave could create. Remember that. He vanished. Not walked away. Simply ceased to exist in that space. Shadows folding in on themselves and disappearing. The basement fell silent except for the sound of Julia and Sariel's ragged breathing. The light around Julia dimmed, flickered, then went out. The essence retreated, satisfied, back into the dark corners of her consciousness, but it left something behind. A residue, a stain. Julia could feel it, could feel how the boundary between her thoughts and its thoughts had thinned, could feel how easy it would be next time to reach for that power again. She swayed. Sariel caught her before she fell, arms wrapping around her with desperate gentleness. Through the bond, she felt his anguish, his gratitude, his horror at what she'd done, what she'd sacrificed. You should not have, he whispered into her hair. You should not have bargained with it. The cost was worth it. Julia pulled back enough to meet his eyes. They were purple again, balanced, but swimming with unshed tears. You were going to die. I could feel it. I could feel you choosing to die so I might escape. So no, Sariel, I do not regret it. I would do it again. I know. His hands came up to frame her face, so gentle it made her chest ache. That is what terrifies me. You would burn yourself to ash to keep me alive. And I would do the same for you. We are going to destroy each other, trying to save each other. Julia managed a weak smile. Then I guess we better make sure we both survive. No heroic sacrifices, no noble deaths. We live, Sariel. Together. Or not at all. Through the bond, she felt his response. Felt him wrap around that promise like a lifeline. Together, he agreed. Then, quieter. I love you. I know I said it in the heat of battle, but I need you to know I meant it. I have existed for over 2,000 years, and I have never loved anything the way I love you. Julia's throat tightened. I love you too, even though you kidnapped me, even though you are technically still supposed to deliver me to my death, even though this is the most insane, impossible situation I have ever been in. I love you. He kissed her then, soft, careful, like she was something precious that might shatter. Through the bond, Julia felt his restraint, felt how badly he wanted to deepen the kiss, to lose himself in her, to forget for just a moment that they were running for their lives. But he held back, because she was exhausted, because the essence had taken more than she wanted to admit, because he would not take more from her when she had already given so much. Julia pulled him closer anyway, kissed him harder, poured everything she felt through the bond. Love, trust, determination, desire, defiance. All of it. Because if they were going to die, if the seraphim were coming and time was running out, then she wanted this, wanted him. wanted one moment of something good before the world tried to tear them apart again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sariel rested his forehead against hers. "We need to move. Azazel bought us time, but not much." "I know." Julia didn't let go. "But first, tell me, the thing you were hiding earlier, the reason the bond formed the way it did. I need to know." Sariel pulled back, his eyes cycling through colors rapidly. Silver, red, purple, silver again. Through the bond, Julia felt his war with himself. The desperate need to tell her the truth versus the terror of what that truth meant. Finally, his eyes settled on purple and stayed there. Honest, vulnerable, completely exposed. "Bonds do not form equally unless both parties are compatible on a soul level," he said quietly. "Unless there is recognition, not of faces or names, but of essence, of the fundamental nature of what someone is." He paused, jaw working. "The bond formed between us the way it did because your soul recognized mine, and mine recognized yours." Julia frowned. "I do not understand. We had never met before you took me. How could—" "Not in this lifetime." Sariel's hands were shaking where they still held her. "But souls are older than bodies, Julia. They carry imprints, memories that transcend individual incarnations. And yours," his voice cracked, "your soul is old, ancient. It has lived before, many times before, and 800 years ago it lived in a girl named Miriam." The basement tilted. Julia's knees buckled, and Sariel caught her, lowered them both to the floor. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because through the bond, she felt the truth of it, felt Sariel's memories flooding through, Miriam's face, her laugh, her voice, and underneath, something deeper, something that felt like recognition, like coming home, like she'd known Sariel forever, not days, like her soul had been searching for him across centuries and finally found him. "That is impossible," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't, knew it explained too much. The way she'd felt connected to him even when she'd hated him. The way his pain had felt like her pain. The way loving him had felt inevitable instead of insane. "I did not know," Sariel said hoarsely. "Not at first. Not when I took the assignment. I thought it was just guilt. Just my mind playing tricks because you were a vessel like she was. But then the bond formed, and I felt your soul, and I knew. God help me, I knew." Tears were streaming down his face now, silver and red mixing, dropping onto Julia's hands. "You are her. Not literally. You are not Miriam. You are Julia. But the soul, the essence of who you are, it is the same. And I failed you once. I stood by and watched them destroy you once. I cannot—" His voice broke completely. "I cannot do it again. I would rather burn the world. I would rather damn myself for eternity. I would rather die 1,000 times than deliver you to that fate twice." Julia's mind was reeling. Memories that weren't hers flashed through the bond. Or maybe they were hers, buried so deep she'd forgotten. Miriam's memories of loving a half-angel, half-demon boy who'd promised to protect her, of trusting him, of screaming his name as angels poured fire into her veins, of dying hating him for his betrayal, even as part of her understood he'd had no choice, of her last thought being, "Find me. In the next life, find me. Do not make the same mistake twice." "She forgave you," Julia said suddenly. The knowledge came from somewhere beyond conscious thought, from soul deep. At the end, when the fire burned away everything else, she forgave you, and she asked you to find her again. Sariel's eyes widened. "How did you—" "Because I remember." The memories were hazy, fragmented, like dreams half forgotten upon waking. But they were there. Not everything, not clearly, but enough. Enough to know that you kept your promise. You found me. You found us. And this time, her voice strengthened. This time we get to choose differently. Through the bond, she felt Sariel's response. Hope and grief and love so intense it burned. He pulled her close, buried his face in her neck, and shook silently. Julia held him, running her fingers through his hair, feeling through the bond how much he'd carried alone for 8 centuries, how he'd blamed himself every single day, how he'd existed in a state of perpetual penance, never forgiving himself, never believing he deserved anything good ever again. "We are going to survive this," she said fiercely. "Both of us, together. And we are going to build a life, a real life. Not running, not hiding, free. The seraphim will come. I know. I can feel your fear through the bond. But Sariel," she pulled back to look at him, "I am not afraid. Not anymore. Because I have something they do not expect. I have you. And I have this." She touched her chest, where the essence pulsed like a second heartbeat. "I made a deal with it, yes. But I am still me. Still in control. And if I can bargain with the celestial essence once, I can do it again." Through the bond, she felt his terror at that idea. "Every time you use it, I know. I become less me and more it." Azazel said as much. "But what choice do we have? Roll over and die? Accept our fate like good little pawns?" She cupped his face in her hands. "I did not survive 9 days of imprisonment. Did not fight my way out. Of possession, did not fall in love with an impossible creature, just to give up now. So tell me, what do we do? Where do we go?" Sariel was quiet for a long moment, eyes closed, leaning into her touch. Then he opened them, and they were purple. Balanced, decided. There is one place the conclave cannot easily reach, a place outside their jurisdiction. But getting there requires... He stopped, started again. It requires going to the equinox site, the place where the sanctuary is, where they plan to perform your ascension. Julia's blood went cold. "You want to go to them?" "I want to steal something from them." A grim smile touched his lips. "There is a relic, an artifact called the Anchor of Enoch. It was created by your ancestor, the prophet. It has the power to sever celestial and demonic bonds, to free souls from contracts, from essence, from possession. If we can get to it, if we can use it on you, the essence inside you will be expelled. Completely. Permanently. You will be free. Mortal, unremarkable. Everything the conclave wants from you will be gone." Hope flared in Julia's chest. "And they will have no reason to hunt us anymore." Exactly. Through the bond, she felt his plan forming. Desperate. Dangerous. Almost certainly suicidal. The anchor is kept in the sanctuary's reliquary, guarded by seraphim, protected by wards that have not been breached in 3,000 years. Getting to it will be... He laughed, sharp and brittle. "It will be impossible, but... Impossible seems to be our specialty lately." Julia should have been terrified, should have protested, should have demanded they find another way. But through the bond, she felt Sariel's certainty. This was their only chance, their only shot at actual freedom. And if they were going to die anyway when the seraphim came, they might as well die trying for something better than just survival. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow is the equinox, midnight. The conclave will be gathered for the ceremony they thought they would perform on you. Most of their forces will be concentrated in the ritual chamber. The reliquary will be less guarded than usual." His eyes met hers. "It is still suicide, but it is suicide with a chance. A small one, but a chance." Julia nodded slowly. "Then we do it. We steal the anchor. We free me from the essence. And we disappear somewhere they will never find us." She paused. "But Sariel, if something goes wrong, if it comes down to a choice between the anchor and our lives, I choose you. No hesitation. I will always choose you. Over artifacts, over freedom, over everything. If I have to spend eternity running with you, bond and all, I will do it gladly. Through the bond, Julia felt the absolute truth of it, felt how he meant every word with every fragment of his fractured soul. I choose you too, she whispered. They held each other in the ruined basement as dawn light began to filter through the broken church above. 24 hours. That was all they had. 24 hours until the equinox. Until they walked into the heart of enemy territory and tried to steal the one thing that could save them. 24 hours to prepare for what would almost certainly be their last stand. Julia felt the essence stir inside her, curious about the anchor, about what it would mean to be expelled. She felt its wariness, its concern, and underneath that, something that might have been respect. The vessel who bargained instead of surrendered. The human who loved a monster. The girl who died once and came back to try again. Through the bond, she felt Serial's thoughts turn to logistics, to weapons they would need, to routes through the sanctuary he still remembered from his centuries of service, to contingencies and backup plans and ways to ensure that even if they failed, even if they died, it would mean something. It would matter. But beneath all that planning, one thought burned brighter than the rest. One desperate, fierce, unshakable conviction that echoed through the bond like a prayer. Not again. I will not lose her again. Whatever it costs, whatever I have to become, I will get her out alive. Julia sent back her own conviction. We get out together. Both of us. Or neither. Serial's response was immediate, absolute. Together. They stood, hand in hand, and began to prepare. For theft, for battle, for the slim, fragile chance at freedom. Julia felt the essence inside her stirring, preparing for what was to come. Felt Serial's duality settling into balance, angel and demon finally working in concert toward a single goal. Tomorrow at midnight, they would walk into the sanctuary, into the place where Miriam had died screaming, into the heart of everything that wanted to destroy them. And they would either come out free, or they would come out dead. But they would come out together. Julia looked at Serial, at his purple eyes that held centuries of pain and days of hope, and made herself a promise. She would survive this. They would survive this. And when they did, when they finally had their freedom, she would spend the rest of her mortal life making sure he knew what he was worth, making sure he understood that he was not a monster, that he was not an abomination, that he was loved, completely, unconditionally, forever. Through the bond, she felt Serial's response, a wordless surge of emotion that felt like coming home, like forgiveness, like grace. Midnight came like an executioner. Julia and Serial stood at Aoind, the edge of the sanctuary grounds, hidden in shadows that Serial had woven around them like armor. Through the bond, Julia felt his terror, felt him cataloging every possible way this could go wrong, every exit that might be blocked, every scenario that ended with her dead. She squeezed his hand, sending calm through the bond, even though her own heart was trying to beat out of her chest. The sanctuary was beautiful in the way that predators are beautiful. All white marble and gold filigree, spires reaching toward a sky full of stars. Stained glass windows depicting angels and saints in jewel tones that glowed from within. It looked holy. It looked pure. It looked like salvation. Julia felt the essence inside her recoil from the sight, hissing like acid on metal. This place was anathema to everything it was, which meant it would be anathema to her too, the moment she stepped inside. Last chance, Serial whispered. We can still run, find another way. There is no other way. Julia turned to face him. His eyes were purple, steady despite the fear she felt coursing through him. We do this. We end this. Tonight. They moved like ghosts through the outer gardens. Sariel's shadows kept them hidden from the seraphim guards patrolling the perimeter. Tall, terrible beings with too many wings and eyes that burned like stars. Through the bond, Julia felt Sariel's hatred for them, felt his memories of serving under them, of being treated as lesser, as mistake, as thing that should not exist, felt his grim satisfaction at slipping past them unseen. The reliquary was in the eastern wing, 3 floors below ground. They made it to the entrance, a simple wooden door covered in wards that made Julia's teeth ache, before the first alarm sounded. Not a physical alarm. Something worse. A psychic scream that rippled through the sanctuary like a shockwave, announcing intruder, abomination, theft. "They know," Sariel said flatly. Through the bond, Julia felt his calculations shifting. Plans A through F discarded instantly. "We have minutes, maybe less." He pressed his hand to the door. The wards flared white-hot, fighting him, burning his palm to char. He didn't flinch, just pushed harder, pouring his own essence into the barrier until it cracked, shattered, dissolved. The door swung open to reveal stairs descending into darkness. They ran. The reliquary was a vault of impossible things. Artifacts hung in the air without support, glowing with power that made the essence inside Julia sit up and take notice. Holy grails and demon swords and crown of thorns and tablets of stone covered in languages dead before Babel fell. And in the center, on a pedestal of pure light, sat the anchor of Enoch, a simple wooden staff, unadorned, unremarkable except for the way reality seemed to bend around it, like it existed in a space slightly adjacent to normal space, like it was more real than everything else. Julia reached for it. Her fingers closed around wood, worn smooth by millennia. The moment she touched it, agony exploded through her body. The essence inside her shrieked, thrashing, trying to escape. The anchor's power activated automatically, responding to the presence of celestial contamination, working to expel it, to purify, to cleanse. Julia's knees hit the floor. Through the bond, she felt Sariel's panic, felt him reaching for her. "Hold on," he said urgently. "Just hold on. Let it work. Let it—" The ceiling exploded. Seraphim descended, like a plague of locusts. 6 of them. 12 of them. Too many to count through the pain. Their voices harmonized in a song that made Julia's ears bleed, made her vision white out, made every cell in her body scream for mercy. Sariel's shadows rose to meet them, darkness against light, and the reliquary became a war zone. Through the bond, even through the agony, Julia felt Sariel fighting, felt him taking damage he couldn't regenerate fast enough, felt him burning through essence like fuel, spending himself recklessly to buy her time, to give the anchor time to work. One seraphim fell, wings severed, dissolving into ash. Another. But more kept coming. And Sariel was slowing. The essence inside Julia made its move. It surged forward, wrapping around her consciousness, around her will, trying to sever the connection between her and the anchor, trying to stop the purification. "Foolish vessel," it hissed through her thoughts. "You will kill us both. Release the anchor. Let me save you." "No." Julia's hands tightened on the staff even as her palms blistered. "You are leaving. That was the deal. I choose. I choose to be free. Then you choose to die." The essence's voice was almost sad. "Because without me, you are nothing. Mortal. Fragile. He cannot protect you forever. They will kill you. And then they will kill him for loving you." Through the bond, Julia felt Sariel falter. Felt a seraphim's blade pierce his side, punch through lung and liver and spine. Felt him collapse. Felt his thought, clear as crystal through the pain. "Get out. Take the anchor. Run. Please." Julia looked up through tears and blood, saw Sariel on his knees surrounded, purple eyes dim and fading, saw the seraphim raising their blades for the killing blow, saw the future branching. In one branch, she held the anchor, completed the purification, became human, became powerless, watched Sariel die. In the other branch, she released the anchor, embraced the essence fully, became weapon. Saved Sariel, but lost herself. Both futures ended in loss. Both futures were unacceptable. So Julia chose the third option, the impossible one. The one that should not work, but might if she was willing to pay the price. She turned the anchor on Sariel. Through the bond, she felt his shock, his horror, his understanding. "No," he gasped. "Julia, no, it will kill. It will free you." Julia poured every ounce of will she had into the anchor, directing its power not at the essence inside her, but at the bond between them, at the connection that made them one. "Free you from me, from this, from having to choose between duty and love. I release you, Sariel. I set you free." The anchor flared. The bond, that beautiful, terrible, impossible bond that had saved them and damned them in equal measure, began to fray. Julia felt it unraveling, felt Sariel on the other end screaming no, no, no through the connection even as it dissolved. Felt his love, his grief, his desperate denial pouring through in the last seconds before they were severed completely. And then, nothing. Silence. The bond was gone. Julia couldn't feel Sariel anymore. Couldn't feel his pain or his fear or his love. The absence was so complete, so total, that for a moment she thought she'd died. That this was what death felt like. Empty. Alone. But she was still breathing, still holding the anchor. And Sariel was standing. The wounds on his body were healing, faster than before, glowing with light that was pure silver. No red, no demon essence, just angel. The bond's severance had done what nothing else could. It had purified him, freed him from his demonic half, made him whole in a way he'd never been. The seraphim stopped, stared. One of them, the largest, with wings like burning wheels, spoke in a voice like thunder. "Brother, you are cleansed, redeemed. Come home." Sariel looked at Julia. His eyes were silver now. Only silver. The purple was gone. The red was gone. Everything that had made him Nephilim, everything that had made him hers, was gone. He was angel now. Pure. Perfect. Everything the Conclave had always wanted him to be. And Julia couldn't feel what he was thinking anymore. Couldn't feel anything. The absence was worse than any pain the essence had ever caused. "Come home," the seraphim repeated. "Your service is complete. Your redemption earned. Leave the vessel. She is mortal now, powerless, unworthy of your protection. Let us handle her." Sariel took a step toward them, then stopped, turned back to Julia, and spoke in a voice that was all his own, clear and certain and absolutely defiant. "No." The seraphim's wings flared. "You would refuse heaven? Refuse your rightful place among us? For what? For a human?" "For her." Sariel crossed back to Julia, stood between her and the seraphim. "For the woman who has died twice loving me. For the soul who found me across 800 years. For the person who looked at a monster and chose to see something worth saving." His hand found Julia's, and even without the bond, the touch felt right. Felt like home. "I do not want redemption if it costs me her. I do not want heaven if she is not there. So take your offer and your purity and your rightful place, and know that I am choosing damnation. Gladly. Willingly. Forever." Sometimes love demands the impossible. It asks us to choose between safety and freedom, between what we're told is right and what our hearts know is true. Julia and Sariel stood at the edge of eternity and chose each other over heaven itself, over redemption, over everything the universe told them they should want. She severed their bond to save him, and he walked away from salvation to stay with her. What would you have done? Would you have had the courage to release someone you loved? knowing it might free them from you forever? Would you have chosen damnation for the chance to stand beside the one person who saw you, truly saw you, and loved you anyway? This story isn't just about chains and angels and ancient prophecies. It's about the chains we place on ourselves, the prisons we build from duty and fear, and the belief that we don't deserve better. It's about finding someone who looks at our darkest parts and says, not monster, but beloved. It's about the terrifying, exhilarating moment when you realize that freedom isn't the absence of bonds. It's choosing who you're bound to. Julia chose Serial. Serial chose Julia. And in that choice, they found something more powerful than any magic, any destiny, any fate the universe tried to force upon them. They found each other. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in impossible choices and love that transcends lifetimes, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a like to let us know you were here. Subscribe to join us for more stories that dig deep into the heart of what it means to be human, or something more than human. Because these stories, they're not just entertainment, they're reminders that we all have the power to break our chains. We just have to be brave enough to try.